You know those moments in life where you wish a giant hole would open up in the floor and swallow you whole? Yeah, that was me last Friday night. So here's the setup. I had been dating this girl, let's call her Claire, for about 3 weeks. Things were going well, texting all day, laughing at dumb memes, and finally, she invited me over for dinner at her place. Big deal. First time seeing her home, meeting her roommates, all that. I spent way too long picking out a shirt that said, "I'm casual but not a slob," and I even brought a bottle of wine that cost more than $12, which for me is basically a financial investment. Claire lived in this cozy little townhouse with 2 other girls, and when I walked in, it smelled like garlic bread and candles. She had gone all out, table set with cloth napkins, actual wine glasses, not the cheap plastic cups I usually drink out of, and a playlist of indie music that screamed Pinterest board come to life. I thought, wow, she's really into me. Dinner was amazing. Pasta, salad, wine flowing. I was making her laugh, she was twirling her hair. Everything was perfect. Until, of course, my stomach betrayed me. Now, I didn't want to admit that I had stopped for Taco Bell earlier in the day because I was too impatient to wait for dinner. Rookie mistake. By the time dessert came around, I felt the unmistakable rumble. You know the one. The internal warning siren that says, you either deal with this now, or it will deal with you later. I tried to hold it in. I smiled, I nodded, I pretended to be super interested in Claire's story about her cat learning how to open doors. But every second, the pressure was building. Eventually, I excused myself as casually as possible, saying the most dangerous words a man can say in a brand new relationship. Hey, can I use your bathroom real quick? Claire smiled and said, of course, it's just down the hall on the left. I should have known then. That sentence was the beginning of the end. I walked down the hall like a man headed to the gallows. Each step felt louder than it should have, like her roommates could hear the footsteps of impending doom. When I shut the bathroom door behind me, I whispered to myself, all right, be quick, be quiet, be invisible. At first, things went okay. I did what I had to do, washed my hands, even sprayed a little air freshener I found on the shelf. I was seconds away from escaping clean when I pushed down on the flush handle. That's when I heard it. Not the normal whoosh of a healthy, functioning toilet. No. This was the gurgle of death. A weak, struggling noise, like the toilet was begging for mercy. The water swirled, rose, and kept rising. My stomach dropped faster than the water should have. Panic set in. I jiggled the handle, praying it would fix itself. It didn't. The water kept climbing, and in less than 10 seconds, it was at the brim. One more drop and we'd be facing an international disaster. Please God no, I muttered, grabbing the plunger that was leaning against the wall. Of course, it wasn't just any plunger. It was one of those cheap rubber ones that doesn't suction properly, the kind you'd find at a dollar store. Still, it was my only weapon. I plunged. Once, twice, 10 times. Nothing. The toilet just burped at me like it was mocking my efforts. Then it happened. The water spilled over. First a trickle, then a wave, until it cascaded onto the tile floor, carrying my shame with it. I scrambled for toilet paper, for towels, anything, but Claire apparently didn't believe in keeping extra rolls in the bathroom. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it in the kitchen. And then came the worst sound of all. Knock knock. Hey, everything okay in there? It was Claire. My soul left my body. I froze. My hand still gripping the useless plunger, my shoes already splashed with water, and Claire's voice floating through the door like judgment itself. Why yeah, everything's fine. I croaked, my voice about 3 octaves higher than usual. It was the least convincing "fine" in human history. There was a pause. "Okay," she said slowly. "Dinner's ready for dessert whenever you are." I forced out a laugh that sounded more like a dying raccoon. "Cool. Be out in just a sec." I waited until her footsteps faded, then turned back to the scene of destruction. The toilet was still half full, the water on the floor had spread dangerously close to the bath mat, and I was seconds away from being discovered. I grabbed a handful of tissues and tried to mop it up, but they dissolved instantly into mush. Genius move. At this point, there were only two options. Admit defeat and confess everything. Go full Mission Impossible and cover it up like it never happened. Naturally, I chose option 2. I spotted the tiny bathroom trash can, dumped its contents, makeup wipes, cotton swabs, a suspiciously fancy candle wrapper, onto the counter, and used the plastic liner as a makeshift bucket. I started scooping toilet water into the sink like some desperate sailor bailing out a sinking ship. Every scoop splashed back at me. My shirt was damp, my forehead sweaty, my dignity non-existent. I whispered frantic pep talks to myself. "You can fix this. You can fix this. She doesn't have to know." But the toilet wasn't done humiliating me. Just when the water level seemed under control, the tank made a loud groaning noise, like it was about to flush again on its own. "No, no, no, no." I slapped the lid like I could calm it down. That's when the bathroom door handle jiggled. Claire again. "Hey, are you sure you're okay? You've been in there a while." My stomach sank. There was no way out now. Time slowed. The bathroom reeked faintly of air freshener and panic, and the only thing between me and total humiliation was the thin wooden door Claire's hand was now testing. "Don't come in," I blurted out, way too fast, way too loud. The kind of shout that only makes people more suspicious. There was a pause. Okay," she said. Her voice carried that mix of concern and curiosity, the kind that meant she was probably already imagining I was doing something 10 times worse than reality. "Drugs? A panic attack? Crying into her hand towels?" Honestly, all of those would have been less embarrassing than the truth. "Just, I'll be out in a second," I stammered, still scooping water into the sink with my pathetic trashcan bucket. The floor was damp, my socks squelched when I moved, and the toilet sat there, smug and uncooperative, like it knew it had one. I glanced at the plunger. Useless. The tissues. Gone. The bath mat. Soaked. It hit me. I was fighting a losing battle. My Mission Impossible cleanup plan wasn't going to cut it. If Claire walked in right now, she'd find me standing in a puddle of toilet water, looking like a raccoon caught stealing from the pantry. I needed a miracle. Then I spotted it. Under the sink, behind some cleaning sprays and a dusty hairdryer, there was a big, fluffy beige towel. Jackpot. I yanked it out, dropped to my knees, and started mopping like my life depended on it. The towel absorbed a shocking amount of water, turning heavy in my hands. My heart was racing, but for the first time in 10 minutes, I thought, maybe, just maybe, I can salvage this. That's when the door creaked. I spun around, clutching the soggy towel to my chest like some guilty child caught with stolen cookies. Claire stood in the doorway, frozen, her eyes flicking from the wet floor to the overflowing trash can to me, dripping sweat and toilet water like a contestant on the world's worst game show. "What the hell are you doing?" she asked, her tone somewhere between horrified and amused. My brain short-circuited. Cleaning. She blinked. "With my good bath towel?" I looked down at the beige monstrosity in my hands, now dark and sopping. There was no saving it. I thought it was a mop? For a second, silence. Then she laughed. Not a full belly laugh, more of a choked, disbelieving giggle, like she couldn't process the scene in front of her. Oh my God, did you break my toilet? Heat surged to my face. Define break. That made her laugh harder. She stepped in carefully, avoiding the puddles, and peered into the bowl. Yup. You broke it. She shook her head, still laughing. First date at my place and you managed to flood the bathroom. That's impressive. I swear, it's not my fault. I babbled. I barely touched the handle, and it just rebelled against me. She leaned against the doorframe, smirking. So you're telling me you lost a fight with a toilet? Technically, I muttered, my dignity circling the drain faster than the water should have. For a terrifying moment, I thought she was going to be furious, kick me out, call me gross, end things right there. Instead, she burst into another fit of laughter, covering her mouth with her hand. This is the funniest thing that's ever happened in this house, she said between giggles. My roommates are going to love this story. My stomach dropped. Wait, you're not gonna tell them, are you? Oh, absolutely, she said, grinning like the devil. They're going to worship me for bringing home the guy who drowned our bathroom. I groaned, burying my face in the soggy towel. Please, no. But Claire was already pulling out her phone. Smile. I need proof for the group chat. And that's how I ended up on my very first date at her place, kneeling in a puddle of toilet water, holding a ruined towel, while my girlfriend snapped a picture of me like I was some wildlife exhibit titled Embarrassed Man in His Natural Habitat. The sound of her camera shutter might as well have been a death sentence. If there's one thing you don't want when you've just humiliated yourself in front of your date, it's an audience. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. Claire was still laughing, snapping photos like she was documenting a crime scene, when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Then a voice. Why are you laughing like a maniac? What's going on? Before I could protest, another girl appeared behind Claire. Then, another. Suddenly, both of her roommates were standing there, peering into the bathroom like tourists at a disaster site. The taller one, a brunette in sweatpants, blinked at me kneeling on the floor with a soaked towel in my hands. Did you just kill our toilet? The other one, a redhead with a bowl of ice cream in her hand, squinted. Oh my God, is that my good towel? Claire immediately pointed at me, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Ladies, meet my new boyfriend. He broke the toilet on his first night here. I wanted to melt into the tile. It wasn't me, it was faulty plumbing. I swear. The brunette crossed her arms, smirking. Yeah, sure. Toilets just spontaneously explode all the time. The redhead shook her head, clearly savoring the drama. Wow. You realize you've just locked yourself into roommate legend status, right? We're never forgetting this. Claire giggled. Oh, he's already infamous. I have photographic evidence. Delete that. I begged, reaching for her phone, but she danced backward out of the bathroom, laughing hysterically. The roommates joined in, their giggles echoing down the hall like hyenas circling their prey. At that point, the bathroom looked like a war zone. The bath mat was soaked, the trash can was overturned, and the toilet still gurgled ominously, as if mocking me. My shoes squelched when I shifted, and the towel in my hands dripped steadily onto the floor. The brunette sighed dramatically. Well, looks like we need to call the landlord. Or a priest. Because clearly this bathroom's cursed now. I scrambled to my feet, trying to salvage some dignity. Look, I'll pay for repairs, or a plumber, or a new house if that's what it takes. Just please, let's pretend this never happened. The redhead snorted into her ice cream. Oh, sweetie, This is the only thing that happened tonight. Claire was still cackling, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, but you have no idea how much joy this is bringing me. This is like peak sitcom material. At this point, I was redder than a tomato. My options were clear: fight back with humor or die of shame on the spot. So I took a deep breath, lifted the soggy towel like it was a flag of surrender, and said solemnly, I have defeated many battles in life, but tonight, the toilet won. There was a beat of silence. Then all three of them burst into uncontrollable laughter, doubling over in the hallway. Claire nearly dropped her phone, and the brunette clutched her stomach, wheezing. Somehow, my shame had turned into their entertainment. And as much as I wanted to crawl out the window and never return, a tiny part of me thought, well, at least she's still laughing. Maybe this isn't a total disaster. That hope lasted exactly 30 seconds, because that's when the toilet let out one final, horrifying groan and flushed itself. Except it didn't flush properly. The water surged back up, spilling over again, flooding the floor worse than before. My sneakers were instantly drenched. The girls shrieked. Claire shouted, "Oh my God, it's possessed!" and her roommates bolted back down the hall. I just stood there, soaked and defeated, watching as the bathroom floor turned into a shallow lake. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a minor mishap. This was a full-blown disaster movie. And I was the star. If there's one thing you don't want when you've just humiliated yourself in front of your date, it's an audience. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. Claire was still laughing, snapping photos like she was documenting a crime scene, when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Then a voice. Why are you laughing like a maniac? What's going on? Before I could protest, another girl appeared behind Claire. Then, another. Suddenly, both of her roommates were standing there, peering into the bathroom like tourists at a disaster site. The taller one, a brunette in sweatpants, blinked at me kneeling on the floor with a soaked towel in my hands. Did you just kill our toilet? The other one, a redhead with a bowl of ice cream in her hand, squinted. Oh my God, is that my good towel? Claire immediately pointed at me, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Ladies, meet my new boyfriend. He broke the toilet on his first night here. I wanted to melt into the tile. It wasn't me, it was faulty plumbing. I swear. The brunette crossed her arms, smirking. Yeah, sure. Toilets just spontaneously explode all the time. The redhead shook her head, clearly savoring the drama. Wow. You realize you've just locked yourself into roommate legend status, right? We're never forgetting this. Claire giggled. Oh, he's already infamous. I have photographic evidence. Delete that. I begged, reaching for her phone, but she danced backward out of the bathroom, laughing hysterically. The roommates joined in, their giggles echoing down the hall like hyenas circling their prey. At that point, the bathroom looked like a war zone. The bath mat was soaked, the trash can was overturned, and the toilet still gurgled ominously, as if mocking me. My shoes squelched when I shifted, and the towel in my hands dripped steadily onto the floor. The brunette sighed dramatically. Well, looks like we need to call the landlord. Or a priest. Because clearly this bathroom's cursed now. I scrambled to my feet, trying to salvage some dignity. Look, I'll pay for repairs, or a plumber, or a new house if that's what it takes. Just please, let's pretend this never happened. The redhead snorted into her ice cream. Oh, sweetie, this is the only thing that happened tonight. Claire was still cackling, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, but you have no idea how much joy this is bringing me. This is like peak sitcom material. At this point, I was redder than a tomato. My options were clear: fight back with humor or die of shame on the spot. So I took a deep breath, lifted the soggy towel like it was a flag of surrender, and said solemnly, "I have defeated many battles in life, but tonight, the toilet won." There was a beat of silence. Then all three of them burst into uncontrollable laughter, doubling over in the hallway. Claire nearly dropped her phone, and the brunette clutched her stomach, wheezing. Somehow, my shame had turned into their entertainment. And as much as I wanted to crawl out the window and never return, a tiny part of me thought, well, at least she's still laughing. Maybe this isn't a total disaster. That hope lasted exactly 30 seconds, because that's when the toilet let out one final, horrifying groan and flushed itself. Except it didn't flush properly. The water surged back up, spilling over again, flooding the floor worse than before. My sneakers were instantly drenched. The girls shrieked. Claire shouted, "Oh my God, it's possessed!" and her roommates bolted back down the hall. I just stood there, soaked and defeated, watching as the bathroom floor turned into a shallow lake. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a minor mishap. This was a full-blown disaster movie. And I was the star. If I thought things couldn't possibly get worse after the roommates witnessed my toilet Waterloo, I was dead wrong. The three of them were standing in the hallway, debating whether to laugh or cry, when the brunette pulled out her phone. "We have to call Mark," she said. "Who's Mark?" I asked, still ankle-deep in my shame puddle. "Our landlord," Claire replied with a sigh. "He's gonna love this." I froze. A landlord. Coming here. Tonight. To see the mess I caused. It was like my humiliation had just leveled up. The redhead was already texting. "We should tell him it's urgent. The water's spreading." And she wasn't wrong. The bathroom flood had started creeping out onto the hallway tiles. Claire gasped and grabbed a handful of paper towels, tossing them onto the floor as if a few napkins could stop the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the toilet burped again, sending up a few ominous bubbles. I half expected a demon to crawl out. 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Claire opened it, and in walked Mark, the landlord, a grumpy middle-aged man with a receding hairline and the energy of someone who hated his job but loved yelling at tenants. He carried a toolbox under one arm and already looked annoyed. "What's the problem this time?" he grunted. The roommates instantly pointed at me like I was a criminal in a police lineup. "He broke the toilet." Mark's eyes landed on me, drenched socks, damp jeans, hair plastered to my forehead. I tried to look innocent, like maybe the toilet had committed seppuku on its own. "It wasn't me," I said weakly. "It just happened." Mark didn't reply. He just stepped past me into the bathroom. The second he saw the mess, his face turned the color of week-old oatmeal. "Jesus Christ, what did you do in here?" "Nothing. I swear." I stammered. I flushed and it just exploded." He cut me off, raising an eyebrow. "Exactly." I nodded vigorously. The girls burst into laughter again behind us. Mark muttered something under his breath that definitely wasn't polite, then crouched to inspect the toilet. He fiddled with the handle, twisted a knob, then pulled the lid off the tank. I leaned over nervously, trying to peek like I had any idea what I was looking at. All I saw was water, mysterious parts, and the remains of my dignity. After a few minutes of clanking around, Mark stood up, wiped his hands on a rag, and glared at me. "Well, congratulations, buddy. You managed to break the flush valve and clog the line at the same time. Impressive." Claire smirked. "See. Talented." I wanted to crawl into the sink. "I'll pay for it," I mumbled. "You're damn right you will," Mark snapped. He scribbled something on a little notepad he carried. New valve, plumber callout, probably replacing part of the flooring too. This is gonna run. Oh, at least $600. $600. For one flush. The roommates gasped dramatically, like they were watching a soap opera. The redhead whispered, "That's the most expensive poop in history." I didn't even. I started to defend myself, then stopped. The less detail, the better. Mark shoved the notepad into my hands. "You can settle with me tomorrow. And for God's sake, don't touch the toilet again." And with that, he stormed out, leaving me holding a bill for $600 and my shredded pride. Claire looked at me, still half laughing, half sympathetic. "Well, on the bright side, you'll definitely be memorable." I groaned, dragging a wet hand down my face. Yeah. Nothing says romance like bankrupting myself with bathroom damage. The roommates clinked their spoons against their ice cream bowls like they were toasting to my suffering. And that's when Claire said the words that truly ended me. "So, are you staying for dessert?" After the landlord left, the apartment felt heavier, like the walls themselves were whispering about my disgrace. I was still standing in the hallway, dripping slightly, clutching the soggy towel like a war veteran clutching a flag. Claire, somehow still smiling, tilted her head. "Come on. Dessert will make you feel better." Her roommates were already back in the kitchen, whispering and snickering like gossiping birds. I wanted to bolt out the front door and never look back, but something in Claire's eyes, half teasing, half warm, convinced me to stay. Maybe if I acted normal, the whole night wouldn't be a total loss. So I followed her into the kitchen. On the counter sat a homemade chocolate cake, perfectly frosted, with strawberries arranged like a Pinterest board masterpiece. It looked like something you'd bring to a wedding, not a casual dinner date. Claire sliced a piece for me, sliding it onto a plate. "Here," she said softly, like a peace offering. I sat at the table, fork in hand, trying not to think about the fact that my socks were still squelching with every move. I took a bite. And holy hell, it was good. Moist, rich, the kind of cake that makes you forget your sins. For about 30 seconds, I thought maybe the night was salvageable. Then the brunette roommate leaned across the table, smirking. "So, should we start calling you Toilet Guy, or do you prefer Floodmaster?" The redhead snorted into her bowl of ice cream. "What about Captain Flush?" I set my fork down and sighed. "Can we not?" Claire giggled, patting my arm. "Relax, they're just messing with you. Honestly, I think it's cute." "Cute?" I repeated, incredulous. "I destroyed your bathroom." "Yeah," she said with a shrug. "But you also look like a guilty puppy right now. It balances out." The roommates burst out laughing again, and I buried my face in my hands. Cute puppy wasn't the vibe I wanted on a date, but hey, at least she wasn't furious. Just when I thought I could power through dessert, the redhead pulled out her phone and said, "I'm starting a group chat, Toilet Boy Chronicles." Claire laughed so hard she nearly dropped her fork. "Oh my God, add me." I groaned. "Please, no evidence. I'm begging you." Too late. A flash went off. The brunette had snapped a picture of me mid-bite, chocolate cake on my lip, looking like a man whose soul had left his body. "Perfect," she said smugly. "This is going viral in our friend group." Claire nudged me playfully. "Hey, at least you're famous now." I stared at her, cake half chewed, and muttered, "I was hoping to be famous for literally anything else." The worst part. Claire looked genuinely amused. Like this whole disaster had only made the night more entertaining for her. And maybe, just maybe, That wasn't the worst thing. We finished dessert amid endless toilet jokes. Don't drink too much water, he'll clog again, and, should we light a candle in the bathroom in his honor? But eventually, the laughter softened, and the night quieted down. Claire walked me to the door, her smile gentle now. Thanks for coming tonight, she said. I scratched the back of my neck, embarrassed. Yeah. Sorry for, breaking your house. She laughed again, shaking her head. Honestly, it's a great story. I'll remember this forever. I smiled weakly. Not exactly the legacy I was going for, but I'll take it. She leaned in, and for one glorious second, I thought, despite everything, despite the toilet, the towel, the $600 bill, I might still get a kiss. But just as our faces were inches apart, her brunette roommate yelled from the kitchen. Night, toilet guy. Claire burst into laughter, pulled back, and shut the door behind me. I stood in the hallway, mortified, sticky socks squishing with every step toward my car. The walk to my car that night felt like a funeral march. Every squish of my wet socks echoed like a bell tolling for my dignity. By the time I got home, I collapsed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The toilet flood. The roommates. The landlord's bill. Toilet guy. I woke up the next morning praying it had all been a bad dream. Then my phone buzzed. It was Claire. My heart skipped. Maybe she was sending a sweet good morning text. Maybe she was telling me she still liked me despite everything. Maybe this was salvageable. I unlocked my phone. It was a photo of me, kneeling in her bathroom, clutching the soaked towel, looking like a man who had lost a war with porcelain. The caption: Ladies, I found him. The chosen one. Toilet guy sweat droplets toilet. And she had sent it to me. On purpose. I groaned into my pillow. A second later, another text popped up. Don't worry, I didn't post it anywhere. Yet smirking face. I typed back, you're evil. She replied with a winking emoji. Okay, fine. At least she wasn't ghosting me. Still, I couldn't shake the dread in my gut. Around noon, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. It was a group chat. Title: Toilet Boy Chronicles. I opened it and instantly regretted it. Claire. Both roommates. And now, apparently, several of their friends. The first message was the brunette roommate posting. Witness protection program can't save him. Behold, our bathroom destroyer. Then came memes. Someone had photoshopped my face onto the Titanic sinking. Another slapped my head onto a plumber in overalls, with the caption, Call now, only $600 per flush. The worst one. My face on the cover of Finding Nemo, but the title had been changed to Finding Dignity. My phone buzzed every 10 seconds as they spammed meme after meme. Claire sent a crying laughing emoji every time, clearly having the time of her life. I buried my face in my hands. This wasn't just a story anymore, it was content. By the afternoon, I had decided to fight back. I grabbed a roll of duct tape, wrote out of order on a piece of paper, taped it to my own bathroom door at home, and sent a photo into the chat with the caption, You can't break what's already broken. The group exploded with laughing emojis. Claire texted me privately a minute later. Okay, that was actually hilarious. Redemption points earned. It wasn't much, but it was something. Still, the landlord texted me that evening with the final bill, $642.57. For a single flush. My bank account whimpered. Claire messaged again later. Still down to see me tomorrow? I hesitated, staring at the screen. After everything, The memes, the humiliation, the financial trauma. Was I really going back? Then she sent. Promise I'll keep you away from the bathroom this time, face blowing a kiss. I sighed, shaking my head. Somehow, against all logic, I typed back. Yeah. I'll be there. Because apparently, even toilet guy deserves a second chance. The next evening, I drove to Claire's place again, still feeling the sting in my wallet and my pride. I debated bailing, faking food poisoning, inventing a sudden family emergency, even joining the Navy and disappearing for 3 years. But somehow, I found myself pulling up in front of her townhouse again. Before I knocked, I gave myself a pep talk. Okay. Tonight will be normal. No toilets. No floods. Just a chill, embarrassment-free date. Claire opened the door with a mischievous grin. Welcome back, toilet guy. I groaned. We're really sticking with that nickname, huh? Oh yeah, she said. It's immortal now. Inside, things were calmer than the night before. The roommates weren't around, thank God, and Claire had set up a cozy movie night. Blankets on the couch, popcorn, fairy lights glowing. No pasta, no wine, no toilet-related doom. Just Netflix and peace. We curled up on the couch, and for the first time in 48 hours, I started to relax. She rested her head on my shoulder. My heart slowed. The world felt safe again. Until halfway through the movie, when Claire whispered, I have a surprise for you. That sentence sent alarm bells ringing. Good surprise or bad surprise? She smirked. Depends. She stood up, disappeared into the kitchen, and came back holding something behind her back. She dramatically placed it on the coffee table. It was a plunger. A brand new, shiny red plunger, still in its packaging, with a bow tied around the handle. I stared at it. You didn't. She grinned. I did. Consider it an inside joke. And a housewarming gift. You're basically part of the family now. I buried my face in my hands. This is my legacy, isn't it? Yup, she said cheerfully, settling back next to me. You'll forever be the guy who broke the toilet on our first date. I sighed dramatically. Fantastic. Just what I always wanted to be remembered for. But here's the thing, as much as I wanted to crawl under the couch and never return, I couldn't help laughing. She was laughing too, clutching her stomach, and suddenly the humiliation didn't feel so heavy. Somehow, she had turned my disaster into our running joke. The rest of the night was surprisingly perfect. We joked, we cuddled, we argued about which movie to watch next. And when she leaned in and kissed me, finally, after all the chaos, it was soft and warm and real. For a moment, I forgot about the toilet, the memes, even the $642.57 invoice. Until, of course, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the group chat. The brunette roommate had posted a photo of the new plunger on the coffee table with the caption, "Round 2 begins." Claire snorted, and I just groaned. Even in victory, toilet guy can't escape his fate. By the time I stumbled out of Claire's house the second night, plunger gift in hand, I couldn't decide if I'd won or lost. On one hand, I'd survived a second date, got kissed, and hadn't caused any new plumbing disasters. On the other hand, my nickname was immortal, my bank account was $642.57 lighter, and somewhere out there existed a cursed group chat filled with memes of my shame. Driving home, I glanced at the passenger seat where the shiny red plunger sat proudly, bow still tied to the handle. It looked like a trophy. The world's worst, most humiliating trophy. And yet, somehow, it also made me laugh. The following week, the toilet guy legend spread faster than I thought possible. When I showed up to grab coffee with Claire near her campus, one of her friends waved at me and shouted, "Yo! Plumber of the year." Another girl I'd never even met leaned over her latte and whispered, "Is that him?" Claire nearly choked on her drink laughing. I buried my face in my hoodie. Fame wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But strangely, the more people teased me, the less it stung. The story became almost endearing. Everyone has embarrassing first date tales, spinach in your teeth, awkward hugs, maybe spilling a drink. Mine just happened to involve flooding a bathroom and financially supporting a landlord's retirement fund. Claire leaned into me one afternoon and whispered, "You know, this whole thing kind of proved something." "Proved what?" "That I'm cursed." I muttered. She smiled. "That you can laugh at yourself. Most guys would have run away after that first night. But you stuck around. And honestly, that makes you kind of awesome." I blinked at her, stunned. Awesome? That's not the word I'd use. "Well, I would," she said. And she kissed me again, right there in public, like she didn't care that people were still calling me toilet guy from across the cafe. And maybe that's when it hit me. Yeah, I messed up. I destroyed a toilet, I embarrassed myself in front of an entire household, and I'll probably never live it down. But in some weird way, it worked out. Instead of running from the disaster, I leaned into it. And Claire saw that. So now, weeks later, the memes still exist. The roommates still crack jokes whenever I visit. And yes, the group chat Toilet Boy Chronicles is alive and well. Claire occasionally shows me new edits they've made, like my face photoshopped onto Niagara Falls, or a motivational poster that says, "Never give up. Unless it's a toilet." But you know what? I don't even mind anymore. Because every time the jokes come back around, Claire laughs. And when she laughs, she grabs my hand, pulls me close, and reminds me that sometimes, the worst first impression can still turn into something good. Would I prefer to be remembered as a smooth, charming guy instead of the one who broke the plumbing? Absolutely. But if toilet guy is my legacy, at least it's a legacy that got me the girl. And every time I see that shiny red plunger sitting in the corner of my apartment, bow still tied on, I can't help but smile. Because sometimes love doesn't start with roses and candlelight. Sometimes, it starts with a flood.